All right, let's dive right in. Today we're going to take a close look at Adrian Newey's move from Red Bull over to Aston Martin.
Yeah, a move that really kind of shook up the F1 world. Everybody's been talking about it, wondering what it means, what it could mean for the sport.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest stories of the offseason.
Yeah.
Newey's a legend in Formula One, right? He's designed some of the most dominant cars we've ever seen.
Absolutely. I mean, this isn't just some, engineer switching teams. This is Adrian Newey. We're talking about, the guy who's basically a magician when it comes to designing cars.
And the timing of this move is really interesting too, right? It comes right as Formula One is about to undergo some massive changes with the new regulations coming in 2026.
Yeah, it definitely adds a whole other layer to this whole thing, doesn't it? Newey is known for his ability to really just get to grips with new regulations and find those loopholes and, exploit them, I guess you could say. So his presence at Aston Martin as we head into this new era, it's a huge deal for them.
Absolutely. But before we get too ahead of ourselves,
Yep.
get into all the implications of this move, let's take a step back for a second
Yeah.
and try to understand why Newey decided to leave Red Bull in the first place.
Right. Well, from what we've heard and read, it seems like Newey wasn't entirely happy with the direction Red Bull was heading in. He even said that despite the team's success in 2024, their car was becoming increasingly difficult to drive.
Mm. That's surprising to hear because from the outside looking in, it seemed like Red Bull was still, the team to beat. So what was just specifically that was making the car so challenging for the drivers?
Well, Newey pointed to the current aerodynamic regulations and the way the cars are designed and the sort of inherent instability he sees in them.
Okay.
He believes that, cars with ground effects, but without sealed side pods like the cars used to have, are much more susceptible to these aerodynamic instabilities. So, it's a tricky situation.
So for those of us who aren't, aerodynamic engineers, can you break that down a little bit? What does that actually mean, like in simpler terms?
Sure. So imagine like you're trying to balance a plate, on top of a stick. If the plate is perfectly flat and the stick is, nice and sturdy, it's fairly easy to balance, right?
Right.
But if the plate is curved or the stick is kind of wobbly, it becomes much harder to keep that balance.
I gotcha.
So in this analogy, the car is the plate and the ground effects are like the stick trying to keep it, stable.
Okay, so without those sealed side pods, which essentially act as walls to control the airflow under the car, it's like the plate is wobbling all over the place, making it really difficult for the drivers to control.
Exactly. And that's what Newey was seeing with the Red Bull car. And he felt like the team wasn't fully addressing the problem.
So how did Red Bull, a team that's, known for its technical expertise, how did they miss something like this?
Well, Newey actually hinted that maybe the team just lacked the experience to fully grasp the complexity of these new regulations and the design challenges that came with them.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily a blatant mistake, but more of a misjudgment of the long-term implications of their design choices.
So perhaps a lack of foresight.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to remember, Formula One is an incredibly competitive sport. Even the smallest error can have huge consequences.
Absolutely.
And Red Bull's rivals, teams like McLaren and Ferrari, they were right there on their tail, pushing them every step of the way.
Yeah, so the pressure was definitely on.
Absolutely. And, that brings us back to Newey's decision to move to Aston Martin. It's almost as if he saw what was coming. He recognized that Red Bull might be facing an uphill battle with these regulations and decided to take on a fresh challenge.
Right, and Aston Martin is not just any team.
Oh, no.
They've got big plans.
Yeah.
Serious resources. They've got a brand new wind tunnel and a partnership with Honda.
Right. They're clearly making moves to become a major player in Formula One.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect storm is brewing here. We've got a legendary engineer looking for a new challenge, a team with the resources and the ambition to reach the top, and a new set of regulations that could shake up the whole grid. This has been fascinating to watch.
For sure. It's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. It really does feel like things are changing in F1, like something big is happening.
Yeah, and I'm curious, though, how much of Red Bull's struggles can we really pin on the car itself? Some people might say that a skilled enough driver can overcome a car's weaknesses.
That's true to a point. Look at Max Verstappen. He's an incredible driver, and he was able to pull off some amazing results, even with a car that wasn't ideal for him.
Right, but even Verstappen had his moments,
Yeah.
Where he seemed to be fighting the car a bit.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Newey was saying. He observed that Verstappen could handle the car's issues, but it wasn't really playing to his strengths, while Sergio Perez really struggled with it.
Yeah, that's interesting because it suggests that, Even the most talented drivers in the world, they can only do so much if the car itself is fundamentally flawed.
Exactly. It really highlights how important that connection is between the driver and the machine. A great driver can push a good car to its absolute limit, but if the car has inherent design flaws, then it's an uphill battle from the start.
And that's what makes Newey's move to Aston Martin so intriguing, right? I mean, this guy has an almost supernatural ability to squeeze every ounce of performance out of a car. He builds these machines that seem to defy physics.
Yeah, it's like he has this intuitive grasp of aerodynamics, how airflow interacts with the car's surfaces, how to manipulate it to generate downforce and reduce drag. He's like an artist shaping the air itself to create speed.
And now he's bringing that artistry to Aston Martin, a team that's clearly hungry for success, and they're not afraid to spend money to get there.
And don't forget their partnership with Honda. That's a huge factor as well. Honda has a long and storied history in Formula One, and even though they've had a few tough years lately, their engine technology could be a game changer for Aston Martin.
Yeah, it's a powerful combination. Newey's design genius, Honda's engine prowess, and Aston Martin's ambition.
It's a potent mix. And with the 2026 regulations right around the corner, this is the perfect time for Newey to make his mark on a new team. A clean slate, a chance to shake things up, and Aston Martin is in a great position to capitalize on that.
So what can we realistically expect from Aston Martin in the next few seasons, do you think? Will they be challenging for the championship right away, or will it take some time for Newey's influence to really be felt?
It's a good question. It's probably unlikely that we'll see Aston Martin fighting for the title immediately. It takes time to integrate Newey's ideas and build a car that can compete at the front consistently.
Right. But with Newey's track record and Aston Martin's resources, I wouldn't be surprised if they started making some serious progress in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. And who knows, those 2026 regulations could really accelerate their rise. If Newey can figure out how to master those new rules like he's done so many times before, Aston Martin could become a real force to be reckoned with.
It's like a game of chess, isn't it? Newey making these strategic moves, anticipating what's coming next. What do you think Red Bull's response to all this is going to be?
They're not going to just sit back and watch their former star engineer lead a rival team to victory. I think they're going to double down on their efforts and try to prove that they can still be competitive without Newey.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Red Bull trying to maintain their dominance.
No!
Aston Martin on the rise with Newey at the helm, and those 2026 regulations adding another layer of unpredictability.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the drivers. Fernando Alonso, a two-time world champion and a fierce competitor, now gets to work with one of the greatest minds in motorsport.
Yeah, that's a partnership with some serious potential. Alonso's experience and racecraft, combined with Newey's technical brilliance, could lead to some incredible results.
It's almost poetic, isn't it? Newey, who designed cars that Alonso had to compete against for years, is now on the same team working together to try and get him back to the top.
It just goes to show that Formula One is always evolving.
Yeah.
Alliances shift. The balance of power is constantly in flux.
And that's what makes it so captivating, right? The constant intrigue, the technological advancements, the human drama. It's a sport that always delivers excitement.
Yeah, it's amazing how one move can have such a ripple effect across the entire sport.
Yeah.
Newey joining Aston Martin has got everyone thinking about what's next.
It really is a fascinating case study. It's not just about the technical side of things, but the human element as well. All the ambition and rivalries that drew up this sport.
Yeah. Speaking of the human element, I'm curious about how Newey's arrival at Aston Martin will impact the drivers.
Right.
We've talked about Alonso, but what about Lance Stroll?
Well, that's an interesting question. Stroll has had some good moments, shown some real talent. But he's also been pretty inconsistent working with someone like Newey, who's known for developing drivers as well as cars. Could be a huge turning point for him.
I mean, it's like having a personal mentor who just happens to be one of the greatest minds in motorsport.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the things Stroll could learn from working closely with Newey.
Yeah.
This could be a make-or-break moment for his career, If he can absorb Newey's knowledge and put it into practice on the track, he could take his performance to a whole new level.
Right, and if that happens, Aston Martin could have a seriously strong driver lineup.
Yeah.
A seasoned veteran like Alonso, and a young driver with a lot of potential in Stroll.
That's a recipe for success in Formula One, that mix of experience and raw talent guided by someone like Adrian Newey.
So as we wrap things up here, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What should they be looking out for as the 2025 season gets underway and beyond?
I think the big takeaway is that we're entering a period of real uncertainty in Formula One. The old guard is being challenged, new partnerships are forming, and those 2026 regulations are looming large.
Yeah, it's a time of huge opportunity for teams like Aston Martin who are willing to take risks and push the boundaries.
Exactly. Keep a close eye on how quickly Aston Martin can incorporate NEWEY'S ideas into their car development. Look for improvements in their performance in qualifying and in races.
Right, and pay attention to the dynamic between Alonso and Stroll.
Hmm.
Will they work well together and push the team forward, or will their different styles create some friction?
Yeah, and of course we can't forget about Red Bull. How will they adapt to life without NEWEY? Will they hold on to their dominance, or will they struggle without their star engineer?
So many questions, and we'll only get the answers out on the track. That's what makes Formula One so compelling. The constant evolution, the unpredictability of it all, and the human drama behind the scenes.
It's a sport that grabs your attention, that rewards you for being curious, and always leaves you wanting more.
That's why we love it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Formula One. Until next time, keep your eyes on the track and your ears tuned for more insights and analysis.